Hello friend, my name is Kiri and today we are going to be talking about Boob Wars, Big Breasts vs. Flat Chest, which is a fantasy hentai game created by Softhouse Seal and released in 2012. This game tells the story of Takamura Manabu, a man who is sent on a mission to end the 100-year war between the two rivaling factions on the planet, the Big Breast Tribe and the Flat Chest Tribe. You see, about 100 years before the game's events, a strange anomaly occurred in the women where they either did not grow breasts or they grew to insane sizes. And because boobs are serious business, this apparently caused the planet to... Kenny agrees with me! Because boobs are serious business, this caused society to separate into two factions, the ones that I named earlier, as well as one neutral faction that just wants everyone to love everyone's boobs for however they are. Our main character is a part of that neutral faction, and it is his job to go and seduce the queens of the rivaling factions and anyone who gets in his way. Because sex solves everything, apparently. I do want to say right now, I'm sorry for sitting down, and I probably sound awful. I still have the PAX plague, and if I try to stand up and record, I might literally pass out. So with that ridiculous plot aside, let's talk about the writing, which isn't exactly shimmering with quality. So the entire game, we're told that Takamura is the good guy. The entire world relies on him. It is up to him to finally bring world peace. But in all actuality, he's kind of a rapey asshole. He goes around beating the shit out of women and then taking them against their will while telling them to deal with it if they complain, and then he proceeds to blackmail or manipulate them into joining his cause. That is not what a hero does. That is what a villain does. That is what the hero is supposed to stop. This is a bad dude. Like, damn! The core concept of the game is that women love dick, and if they do not realize that the minute you start talking about sex, then it is your job to make them understand. When you finally get to the Big Breast Tribe Queen, the only reason she sleeps with you is because she is terrified that you are going to murder her followers if she doesn't. She starts having a panic attack on your dick, and the main character relishes that. As for the actual speech, if we're honest, it's pretty terrible. The script feels like it was written by some horny teenager that was inspired by E.L. James' writing, because whoever was in charge of script writing had a very strong aversion to using the words penis and vagina. That is what these things are called. It's called the human body, people. Your penis is not a sexy shish kebab, and my vagina is not a meat pit or a honey pot, whatever the they decided to call it. It just felt really immature. I mean, if you're going to write an adult game, try not to sound like a child. With that little rant out of the way, the gameplay it's different. It has the typical visual novel style of gameplay where you click through the game and you make a couple of decisions, but really they don't matter because the only decisions I found were where you want to splooge. In the gallery from the main menu, you can look at what pictures and sex scenes you've unlocked if you want to look at the pictures or go back and replay the scenes. And there were apparently a lot of scenes and pictures I did not get, but I don't understand how I'm supposed to get them unless I missed something. Like I have to play the game on super difficult combat settings. I don't know. I played the game 4 times and I got the same exact story and like the same exact outcome every single time I played. The only time my choices ever seemed like they mattered was when I tried to skip like the underlings and I went straight to the queens, and the queen, she will wreck you. She has like 999 health, and no matter what you do, she's going to beat the crap out of you and you're not going to be able to hit her. But other than that, like I didn't at any point feel like there was some sort of decision I could have made or something that could have happened that would have changed any part of the story. So I'm really disappointed that the game creators made it very unclear. Anyways, the majority of the gameplay you're going to find is in the combat system, it's interesting. This is not in a turn-based card game where you need to pick up to 3 numbered cards. If the total of your numbered cards is a larger number than what your opponent chooses, you will either break through their defense and an attack, or successfully fend off their attack. How much damage is dealt seems to be based off of how much of a lead the attacker has. So if you're in a defense phase and only play enough cards to get a total of 4 and the attacker's cards count to like 16, you're going to be hit with a major amount of damage, but if you play an 8 and the attacker plays a 9, you're only going to be taking a little bit of damage. Unfortunately, there isn't any sort of counterattack system, so if, say, you overcompensate for what the attack actually ends up being, you essentially just wasted some good cards. If there's anything I am willing to praise the game on, it is definitely the visuals, because this was a really lovely game. It's a beautifully made game that uses gorgeous shading and coloring that truly brought out the fantasy elements of the story. Everything was very high quality and sharp, even if it got a little pixelated at times in full screen. You know how I usually complain about how the anime character looks really flat and boring against a super high quality, like, detailed background? That's actually not the case here. There is no harsh contrast because the characters and the world design were created in a very similar manner, so they complemented each other extremely well. I especially liked how you could easily tell the difference between tribe members, because the Big Breast tribe members had a very Western feel to them. They definitely had sort of like a European style in clothing choices, whereas the Flat Chest tribe, for lack of a better word, they dressed like skanky ninjas. However, lolis are weird. Lolis are always weird, and you can't just say, oh, it's the anime style, they all look young. It's like, yeah, but I've also seen anime where I could clearly differentiate between an adult and a child, and pretty much everyone in this game looked like a child. There also were some visual changes made about halfway through the game that I don't quite understand. The first one being how they decided to depict the main character, because at first you could see his body, you could see his dick, you could see his hair, but you didn't see his face, and you know, whatever, a lot of games like this do that. But then about halfway through, they decided they were going to get rid of that style, and they used sort of like, if you're not big into hentai games, you might not know what I'm talking about, but if you are, you know how some hentai games will, instead of having like a real looking person, they just kind of have like a phantom hand or like a phantom dick. I can't really show you because I would just have to censor it out and that would completely defeat the purpose, but it was very see-through, it was very dark, it very much just looked like a phantom, like ghost body part. It was just a really strange design change I don't really understand, especially if you're going to do that in the middle of the game. The other change was how sex scenes later in the game, some of them became a little bit animated. I mean, when the creators try to animate sex scenes, I really just want to commend them for putting in that extra work, because, you know, it's just taking an extra step that doesn't necessarily need to be taken. However, the scenes that were animated weren't really all that important, and it just seemed relatively strange to me. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to animate a couple of scenes and then not animate the rest. All in all, I have to admit I do actually genuinely regret purchasing Boob Wars. As visually appealing as it was, the story itself was just, it was disturbing. It was really disturbing. Now, I understand that people have rape fantasies. That does not bother me in the slightest, as long as you understand that it's wrong and you're not going to go rape anyone because you know it's wrong. It's when you create a story entirely centered around rape and you actually try to justify it by saying, oh, well, she wanted it in the end. That's when I start getting bothered. It didn't really help that the story itself was very flat and absurd, and it was extremely short, because this was really only like, it took me about 3 to 4 hours to get through, I think, and this is like a $25 game. There was no gameplay outside of combat, and while that was interesting enough, the combat was entirely based off of luck. There wasn't any real strategy involved. You would just hope you got a good card. The game featured a pretty snazzy soundtrack though, so That's nice, I guess. Anyways, those are my thoughts on boob wars, big breasts versus flat chests. Have you played it? Which do you like better, big boobs or little boobs? Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, you can find all of my social media as well as my Patreon in the description. Happy unbirthday, and I will see you later. Bye!
I was so excited, I was so happy to be there. So yeah, I did get to do a little bit of recording while I was in there. I was able to take a couple pictures, but I couldn't like obviously take videos and pictures of like the dev
little
area.
bits of information that not only provide insight on the story itself, but it reveals these two characters to be very complex people that are a lot more than what they initially come off as. We get to watch them grow and develop